speaking of Roy Jones being an exemplary Olympian in 1988 and the class that he showed in that situation, being ripped off for his gold medal, talk about why is the Olympic boxing team, like 20 years later, what was up with the just an atrocious performance, collective performance of that team this year?
I was in China. I was calling the fight, and it was the worst performance. You have it right. I mean, besides having it right, as far as just looking at it in your opinion, I mean, historically, it's legitimately labeled that way, as you just said. The worst performance. It's the worst performance of any U.S. Olympic boxing team ever. I mean, it actually is in the record books as such.
Right.
Before that, I think it was 1948, where we had a team that only won one medal. I believe they won a silver, and this team
only won a bronze with
Deontay
Wilder,
the heavyweight representative, who was very green. So yeah, it was a terrible performance. Look, I think there's a lot of blame to throw around there. I think some of it's the fighters. I don't, you know what bothered me with the fighters? I respect any fighter go on, walk out that dressing room, take that long walk that must feel like the last mile, and does, and then get up those steps and get in that ring and face what they got to face inside themselves as well as inside their opponent. But what bothered me was I was watching the Europeans, and boy, they were devastated when they lost. And some of them got treated to bad decisions, just like our guys, blamed the system and the scoring. And it's horrible. Yeah. They got to get rid of it, or they're going to ruin. They're going to just chase away amateur boxing or what's left of it. And they've damaged it already. Where people have to watch that and watch that system and watch what that system has forced the styles to become because of that system, and of course the bad decisions, everything else. Right. But other countries got treated badly as far as the decisions too, not just the U.S. Matter of fact, other countries got treated worse, some of them. But what bothered me was I'm watching the European fighters from all these different countries, and boy, when they lost, they were devastated. And I'm not saying that our kids didn't care at all, but it bothered me where some of them were like, no big deal, I'm turning pro next month. I don't want to hear that. Even if you're protecting yourself. See, I understand the human condition pretty good, and I'm usually pretty understanding of that. So maybe they're protecting themselves a little bit, and they are, really disappointed. But I don't want to hear a kid who just finished representing my country, which I think is the greatest country in the world, and you're privileged to be born here. You are, because when you see what's out there in some of these countries and what people have to go through, you realize you're privileged to be born here. And instead of acting as though it means something to them, they say, no big deal. Well, that's part of the problem. Because when they start saying no big deal, and I see the European counterparts saying, it meant everything, well, that's attached to the performance that you just saw, or what you didn't see. And I think that there's other things too. We're so arrogant. Sometimes we have the best athletes, and a lot of times we do the fastest kids, and they're fighting the pro style, and they're saying, oh, they're going to go and just do it, but they're taking no respect or thought that that style does not necessarily work within the system that they're going to be dealing with when they get in there with the styles, the European styles of guys staying away and fighting that get off and get out kind of boxing, that pro-oriented style, that it might be good later on, in your own country when you go pro, but in the Olympics, it's not going to necessarily work for you. And instead of understanding that, and early in our programs, in our amateur programs, putting seminars in, put training camps in, where they can start to understand what it takes to be productive and effective and competitive on the international stage, on the Olympic stage, amateur-wise. We don't. We just like let them go in there, and say, well, our fast hands and our aggressive style, or our counter-punching style, or our pro style is going to be good enough, without paying attention to what does and doesn't work in the Olympic program.
And being able to improvise and adapt
And,
at the moment against the style.
And have programs, have our Junior Olympic programs with these kids early on, have them, start to be developed, where when they get to the Olympics, where they're going to be the kids representing the United States, that they're aware of that kind of fighting system, that kind of style, and they're prepared for it. Look, we have to make a choice, our Olympic boxing program. Do we just want to be what we've been, the feeding grounds, the breeding grounds, quite honestly, the farm system for promoters to just have pro fighters later on? They get all the experience, they go through the system, and then they turn pro. And no matter what they do in the Olympics, they're going to turn pro. So are we going to continue being that kind of, production, part of the production line of spitting out these kids that are going to be ready for the pros? Or do we want to put out a representative, competitive Olympic team that we used to do years ago that could make the United States proud when they go on to international stages? Do we want to do that? Do we want to have what we had this year, a complete debacle and an embarrassment of a team? That will continue if we don't start to decide, what our goals are. And the people that are in charge don't start to understand that.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
So much to
Thank
talk
you.
about. And, once again, you're always welcome to come in and talk. We'll talk more boxing and everything. So definitely.
Thank you.